There's a common response that I get when people ask what my career is and I say that I'm a horse trainer. I often get, "Oh, so you must be a horse whisperer." I think that horse whisperer has become kind of a buzzword, especially for people that don't necessarily know horses when they hear that you work with horses. I think those of us that do work with horses recognize that it's actually much less about horse whispering and it's a lot more about horse listening. I'm Callie. This is my horse Noelle, and you're watching the weekly show here at CRK Training, where I share riding tips, training advice, and horse care ideas. And today I'd like to talk about this idea of listening to the horse. And the more that we can become better at listening to our horses, this actually makes us better riders, it makes us better trainers, and most importantly, it's really what develops the relationship between us and our horse, because it's what allows it to become more of a two-way conversation between us and the horse, instead of just thinking about what can we have the horse do, what can we do with the horse, or what can we train them to do. I'd like to give you 4 points for getting better at listening to your horse. The first one is to notice changes in behavior. Sometimes these are really big changes, other times they might be more subtle. But as you get to know your horse, whether it's your personal horse or whether it's a lesson horse, you'll become better at having a baseline for their behavior and noticing when something shifts. It might be the horse that's normally very calm and steady comes in for a ride and he's tense and he's spooking at things that normally wouldn't bother him. It might be the horse that is typically more sensitive and reactive, but one day he comes in and he seems to be more lethargic. It could also be the horse that normally stands well on the cross ties, but today you bring your saddle out and he starts to fidget and he starts to pin his ears. When we can see these changes of behavior and we can take a moment to reflect and think about what might be causing them, when we listen to the horse, instead of just pushing forward, we take a moment and we think about, well, did he have enough turnout the last few days? Has anything changed in his feed or even in the social dynamics in his herd? Is there something physical that could be going on? For example, with the saddle, instead of just giving him the elbow, putting the saddle on and cinching it up, taking a moment to pull the saddle down, run your hands along, and just palpate for any soreness. Whenever you notice a change in behavior, it's just information. It doesn't necessarily mean that you need to stop what you're doing, but it's something to observe, to think about, and to notice going forward. The next step is to look for the small, subtle signs. Things like your horse's facial expressions. Things like the way that they're standing. Do they suddenly have one leg that they're just favoring a little bit more? Even before they, say, get to the point of lameness, they have a leg where they're just not putting quite as much weight under it. Maybe they're slightly taking it in front of the other one each time that they come to a standing position. You can see signs of tension in their nostril, in their lips, and around their mouth, around their eye. Looking for those changes both when they are making improvements as well as when they're showing that maybe they're not quite as comfortable. So for example, if we change something, if we're riding the horse and we change our posture and we notice that all of a sudden the horse moves more freely and he lets his neck down, it's noticing those small things that we just did something that perhaps the horse appreciated, that felt better to him. It's when you're grooming and you reach a certain point and all of a sudden your horse just seems to kind of soften. Or even more obvious, he starts to lift his upper lip and he leans into wherever you're currying. Or it might be the opposite. You're going along, touching your horse or grooming, and you hit a spot that all of a sudden they just tense up. If you can notice those little things and you can investigate them a little bit further, or you can pay attention if they continue in the future, it gives you so much more insight into what's working well for your horse, things that you're doing that they enjoy, and the opposite, the things that are making them uncomfortable or might be signs of a problem that is starting to brew. Next, remember to consider the horse's point of view. A great example of this is when you're going out on the trail and your horse is spooking at something, a bush that you can see so clearly is just a bush with a few rocks around it. But to your horse, they just can't seem to get past the fear. It's really easy in those moments to get really frustrated and just think, don't be so dumb, it's just a bush. But when we can think about things from our horse's perspective, past experiences that they've had, past experiences that they haven't had, and how something can look so different, even from the way that they literally view the world and the way that they see color and they see shapes, and their field of vision is different than us. When we can be a little bit more empathetic to just seeing things from the horse's perspective, it again makes it easier to listen to what they might be telling us when they need to back off a little bit or when they need to go a little bit slower. Finally, listening is much easier when we can have an attitude of curiosity. When we notice these changes in behavior, when we notice the subtle signs and the little things in our horse, when we can be curious about them, instead of just being accusatory, thinking that our horse is being disrespectful or he's just trying to get away with stuff or get out of work. Or instead of making assumptions that he already knows this, he should just do it. When we can come from this place of curiosity, we'll be much more open to hearing what our horse is really trying to tell us. Now, I would love to hear from you. So leave a comment down below this video and just tell me one thing that you've noticed listening to your horse. I really look forward to reading your comments, and make sure that you leave your comment at crktrainingblog.com. That's where our best conversations happen. There's many other videos for you to watch there, and I'll see you back next week.